A very special visitor in from Israel. We want to welcome and give an opportunity to address our congregation, General Jonathan Conricus. General Conricus is a former IDF spokesperson and a senior fellow at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. We're grateful to the American Friends of Magen David Adom for bringing him in, giving him the opportunity to speak and address our congregation this Shabbat. General Conricus.
Okay, Shabbat Shalom. So I understand that I am the person standing between you and having a meal and lunch. So I will be brief. I want to thank Magen David Adom, the American Friends of Magen David Adom, for bringing me here, Mr. Feldman specifically. It's a pleasure and an honor. I've visited many congregations in America and Canada over the last year. This was a beautiful ceremony, and I really want to wish Mazal Tov to the Fishman family. You have good potential, not only a strong, beautiful Hebrew name, Jonathan, but you read beautifully, and it was a moving ceremony to be part of, and I understand why you're proud. Now, I have about 6 minutes, and I will be very brief, and in telegraphic form, I'll try to share a little bit about reality that isn't reflected in most of the media that you are accessible to in English language. So we are 13 months into a war that we didn't start, didn't want, and if I am to be very honest, probably didn't prepare for, or at least didn't prepare well for. We still have 101 hostages in Hamas captivity, out of whom 36, unfortunately, sadly, we know are no longer alive, and their families have been notified, and there are serious doubts about the well-being of the remaining ones. Out of the 3 goals that the Israeli government defined regarding Gaza and Hamas, to dismantle their military capability, to dismantle Hamas's control of Gaza, and to get the hostages back, none of the 3 have been accomplished so far. We're very close on accomplishing the first one, which is dismantling their military capacity, but in terms of taking control of Gaza or getting out, or getting Hamas out of Gaza, that hasn't yet happened. And where we are now strategically, we're in that twilight zone between the end of major military operations and the commencement of what hopefully will be some diplomatic solution to replace the evil oppression of Hamas and to set forth something more positive in Gaza. I'm not entirely sure how it's going to happen. There are a few options. The more negative and the options that we would rather not have include Israeli soldiers having to actually control and govern the Gaza Strip in order to get rid of Hamas and ensure the safety of Israelis. There may be other options, but I think that unfortunately, currently, that is the most realistic one, and that is what the IDF is preparing to do under the guidance of the Israeli government. As the fighting in Gaza is winding down, because Hamas is on its knees, militarily speaking, yet still refuses to admit defeat and still refuses to end the suffering by handing over the hostages and by surrendering. The fighting in Gaza is winding down, but the fighting in Lebanon continues. Not at the highest intensity, but there are approximately 25,000 Israeli soldiers fighting in southern Lebanon, with the main goal of allowing Israeli civilians, at least 70,000 of them, that's the official number. The unofficial number, I think, is much closer to 85 or 90,000, allowing those people to go back to their homes. Currently, as far as I'm aware, the Israeli operation in Lebanon is not about reaching the Litani or having coffee in Beirut or completely defeating Hezbollah. However we look at the current situation in Israel and Lebanon, it'll probably end with some type of diplomatic agreement brokered by the US and by the French, whereby southern Lebanon will be cleared of Hezbollah and Israelis will be able to go back to their homes, but the problem will still remain. Iran will still have a heavily armed military outpost on our border. They will still have rockets, and they will still have the very lethal intention of destroying the state of Israel. Relevant, by the way, to this week's parasha, and I very much enjoyed and listened with great attention to you, sir, and learned a lot. But one thing that I think we should also mention from this week's parasha is that Eretz Israel, it's referred to as Canaan in this parasha, but Eretz Israel was given to us. One of the root causes of what we are dealing with in Israel now, so many thousands of years after, is that our neighbors are still not coming to the understanding that this is it, that Eretz Israel was given to Am Israel, and they still wish and dream and try to kick us out. That is what we're dealing with. And one of the things that when you listen to Hamas, and by the way, we failed to listen to Hamas, we failed to listen to what they were saying, to actually take to heart when they spoke about their future intentions and their strategy. Had we listened, I'm quite sure that we wouldn't have failed so badly in defending ourselves. But what they've been saying all along, before October 7 and during the war, and they still say it, is that their intention, they don't speak about the Gaza Strip. When they say occupation, and when they try to harp on all kinds of terms that are popular today in the West, when they say occupation, they don't mean Gaza. They mean Jerusalem, Haifa, Tel Aviv, Yafo, Beersheba, Kfar Saba, Tiberias, and Tzfat. They mean all of Eretz Israel, what they call Palestine. And that's something that I think we should keep in mind, and it's very relevant from today's parasha, the connection between Am Israel and Eretz Israel, and the fact that our enemies simply are not willing to come to terms with the fact that we live in our ancestral homeland, we intend to continue to live in our ancestral homeland, and there's only one way for them to get along in the future, and that is by accepting it. But we're still not there. And in terms of other battlefields, the situation in southern Lebanon is going along quite positively. The images coming out of southern Lebanon are quite ugly, and if you've seen them, it's a lot of destruction of infrastructure in southern Lebanon. Why so? Because Israeli troops are going door to door and house to house, exploring and searching for Hezbollah infrastructure that was built over between 10 and 15 years of meticulous planning and investment by Hezbollah and with Iranian money. And in almost every house, and for certain in every Shiite village in southern Lebanon, within close proximity to the border, there was military infrastructure. And it was there in order to serve Hezbollah as a launch pad or a staging ground in order to attack into Israel. And I'll say that as horrible as the events were on October the 7th, and as deeply as they will forever be in our memories, we actually got lucky on October 7th. We got lucky that Hamas decided to jump the gun and go forward with an attack that was part of an Iranian plan, but probably wasn't dialed in 100% with the other participants. Hamas decided to strike, probably relying and hoping that the other Iranian proxies would join in and attack Israel as well. And I can tell you here, based on the infrastructure that we have found in southern Lebanon, had Hezbollah decided to attack together with Hamas, the atrocities of October 7 in southern Israel would have been dwarfed by the power of 10 by what Hezbollah would have done in the north. And fortunately, we will never know, really, why Yahya Sinwar, the late leader of Hamas, decided to jump the gun, and why Hassan Nasrallah, the late leader of Hezbollah, decided not to join in. They're not available for comment, and so are many other terrorists who started the war against Israel. And I think that is exactly how it should be. When you start a war against Israel, there's one price to pay, and many of these terrorists have now paid it. Going forward, and with this I will conclude, because I think this is what will color the coming months and probably years of the situation in the Middle East, relates to Iran. Israel, I think, has crossed a psychological Rubicon, and it crossed it a few months ago, where for the first time Israel dealt directly with the Islamic Republic of Iran and sent the oppressive regime in Iran a message that 15, 20 years of Israeli strategy, or lack thereof, which basically allowed Iran to implement its strategy of building a ring of fire around Israel and fighting an indirect war of attrition against Israel. That strategy worked beautifully for Iran. It advanced their regional standing. It created a lot of influence for them. It also allowed them to continue with their nuclear weapons program. And that strategy wasn't met with an Israeli strategy for about 20 years. We dealt with their nuclear program, tried to delay it, not with a lot of success, because today the Iranians have enough enriched material to build 15 nuclear bombs. And that's not me saying it, that's the Atomic Agency. So not even Israeli or American sources, but the Atomic Agency, that's what they assess. And going forward, what I think you will all see, and this means that the war is going to go on for quite a while, Israel is now shifting that balance in the Middle East and is going to address the threats and the main source of instability in the Middle East, which is the Iranian regime. I live in Israel. My wife and 4 kids, we live in Israel, and we intend to continue to live there, grow old, see our children get married and have children of their own, and beautiful bar mitzvah ceremonies like the one we saw here. That, I don't think, will happen peacefully and in prosperity as long as Israel allows its main enemy, Iran, to continue to fund terrorist organizations that fight and want to kill us. And until we deal with the root cause of violence, then we will need many more ambulances provided by Magen David Adom, and we will need help and contributions and prayers and love, because we will be fighting for our very existence. The moment that the Iranian regime either doesn't have the capacity or doesn't have the control or the will to continue to fund different terrorist organizations against us, that will be the moment where there will be a significant shift, and I think that we are now in the early stages of that happening. The road is going to be bumpy, and I think that in Israel we are gearing up and preparing for additional times of hardship. I'm happy to see a vibrant Jewish community here, and on behalf of many, many Israelis who I was aware, but many Israelis before October 7 were not aware of the tremendous support, care, love, material support and energy that American Jews have provided to their brothers and sisters in Israel. On behalf of them, I would like to say thank you for all that you have done and are doing and will do. And I want to tell you that it is super important for Israelis to feel, especially after the dark moments of October 7, that we are not alone and that our brothers and sisters from around the world care and do for us as well. So in a very short, little bit more than 6 minutes, summary of the current situation, I'll be available outside if you want to ask additional questions. Thank you very much, and Shabbat Shalom.